all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, and the pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop, smoking weed.
All right, welcome everybody. After 2 weeks of despair, we finally have some rookie running back sightings on the scoreboards. So we've got Omari in Hampton. He broke out, and unfortunately Najee Harris broke down. Travion Henderson, he didn't light up the box score, but hey, 2 fumbles by Ramondre might have opened the door, so that's good. Cam Scattergo looks like he's the feature runner for the G-Men. Quinshon Judkins, man, he looked gritty against that Packers run defense. Love to see that. And then we've got guys named Bill, Tootin, Ollie, Gordon, and Woody Marks. They're all at least in the mix now in their respective running back rooms, so we like to see that. And Ashton Genty, well, you know, if he can't say anything nice. It is kind of fun to have names like Bill and Ollie to Woody to root for, isn't it, though? So, guys, let's get into the Empire. Let's go. What do you think about these rookies? Who's standing out? Looks like a stud. Anybody who you think is, it's maybe a little bit of a mirage or going to be more of a cameo role? What do you got, Chris? What are you thinking about these guys?
Well, you mentioned a lot of big names there that I think are going to be very valuable going forward, but I don't think there's been a bigger 1 week turnaround in the way we've look at him and his outlook the rest of the season than Omari and Hampton, especially, with the Najee Harris injury. And then the rest of that game taking over and looking good. I think a week ago, we were like, all right, we got a potential 3rd round, early 4th round bust on our hands in Hampton. And now just 1 week later, he might be the guy that you need to win in that 3rd round, 4th round pick. That's how highly I am looking on the rest of his season. So Hampton to me is the clear winner of week 3. But
didn't he look better too? I mean,
his
breakdown aside, I mean, he looked like he was actually figuring out where the lanes were, and
now
has juice.
Yeah, I mean, he could catch the ball out of the backfield. He's the only show in town in that backfield in a good offense, and volume is king, and he's going to get plenty of it. So he'd be the clear winner, but he was the earliest drafted. I talked last week about how much I liked Quinshon Judkins, and I think his outlook the rest of the season after he completely took over the backfield is another major winner. And you can't forget about Maddie's boy, Cam Scatterbo, that, with the Tyrone Tracy injury. So 3 guys right there, big winners of week 3.
I mean, for me, mentioning Hampton, look, somebody's going to come into this backfield and have a small role, but it was the targets and the receptions. I think he had 7 targets, 6 receptions. That to me was something that, you really needed to see and, buoys him stronger. Travion, we saw like everybody in that backfield fumble. It was like crazy. But the premise on Travion and what I'm going to be looking for week 4 is the pass catching ability. As I said on this first show, I said CMC, Achane, Travion. That's how highly I think he's going to at some point be used in that role. That's his strength. That's the sex appeal of Travion Henderson. So we'll see going forward. He had 6 targets, 6 receptions his first game. He has a total of 5 targets and 5 receptions the last 2. Hopefully the door was open there. Scatterbo, I mean, forget the Texas-Arizona State game last year that everybody saw. Well before that, he was insanely productive in his college career. He didn't have the 40 speed, but all the other traits in the compound, he just was off the charts. So, hopefully for him, Judkins, the biggest surprise with Judkins is how rapidly he just took over the backfield, like Chris said, missing all.
Sampson real quick.
Yeah, and I don't understand that because I think they have a really nice thunder and lightning combination. Sampson is a good player. We saw week 1 what he can do as a pass catching back. So, I mean, Jerome Ford needs to be gone. Genty, I have to mention, he has 144 yards rushing and 146 yards have come after contact. I mean, hopefully the Raiders figure that out. And, I think Tootin is coming. If anybody's trending downward, it's ETN. He got that late touchdown, which they basically let him walk in to, get the ball back. But, I mean, I think it's interesting. The last thing I'll comment here and pass it on to you guys is Bill. That right now is a three-headed monster, which won't work for anybody. But he does have some nice metrics if you're looking at, as far as rushing. But McNichols, I think, is the scariest one out of that backfield to threaten him as far as shares.
All right. I want to start by adding, I take offense to Matt's comment that ETN is trending down. I don't think he's done anything wrong to not keep a decent timeshare there.
Well, can I cut you off when you say he hasn't done anything wrong? The first game, he had 16 rushes for 143 yards. He had that 71-yard rush. That was great. The last two games, he has 30 rushes for like 120 yards. He is not an he'll have a big run, but he's not the back they need. And I think you're going to see it as it progresses. And with all these running backs, unless you're like a first-round pick, it usually takes a little time before you pop. And we saw that last year with a few of them. So that's my argument there.
We'll agree to disagree on that.
Okay.
I do think the Hampton one he's the guy that I think propels himself to RB1 conversation now, whereas just a week ago we were trying to decide whether we were even going to start him in lineups. So life comes at you fast, but with the Najee injury, I think that plays a huge role in it. I'm still going to stand by the opinion that I don't think he's that good, actually. So from what I've seen on tape and these games, he does not impress me at all. He's like the least impressive out of all these rookie running backs. Scatabo looks way better to me. Trevion Henderson, I think that issue there is I always knew that he was going to get limited touches. It's not going to be this like huge workload for him, but it's more about just getting him in space, and they've been having a hard time with that so far. But I think with the fumbles with Stevenson and then one with Gibson, I think that's going to open things up a little bit more for him, where they might just say, you know what, because he's a physical runner too, where you don't necessarily need to get him in space. He can run between the tackles. So Henderson is a guy that I think in the next couple of weeks could be coming on strong. And then the other guy that sticks out to me, obviously, is Judkins. Like you guys said, I don't really have much to add because you guys, covered it all. I'm more, just like you guys, I'm more surprised at how quickly he ascended to the top of the depth chart and the amount of touches he's getting, right away. So that's a good thing for people that, kept drafting him late in drafts. He was going at a pretty good discount, and he looks like he could be like a legit RB2 starting option. I think that was it for the running backs that
and he passes the eye test too, guys.
Yeah, he definitely does.
The other day, the volume's going to be there. He's probably going to be a 15 to 20 carry. That the Browns want to play these games like they just played. They want to play 17-14. They want to play 20-13 each week. They don't have the explosive offense, but bringing this kid Junkins in now, they have a bell cow back, I think. So he's going to be a huge hit. And I think the overall, to sum up this, Dan, I got to get to you in a second, but the overall landscape of the running backs after week 3 it was a big 0 RB win week for the 0 RB truthers, because not only did we already have another good game from Warren and Javonte, J.K. Dobbins, that area, but now we added a Quinshon Junkins, Cam Scattergood, Jordan Mason, and Trey Benson now. So, that 0 RB strategy didn't look great maybe after the first week or two, and now all of a sudden we got like 4 or 5 more running backs in that range that are going to help out those 0 RB truthers. So that's overall the way I look at the whole landscape of the running back position.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right take. And, just to kind of pile on Judkins a little bit, I heard a lot of people going, yeah, I don't want anything to do with Cleveland. I'm not drafting that guy. And it's, hey, it was obvious that Cleveland wanted to run a ground and pound offense and rely on defense. And, so why wouldn't you want to try to grab that running back, especially when he's going so cheap? Now, I could understand if you had to grab Judkins in the 4th round or something like that. Might have been a different story, but, that wasn't the case. You've got to be able to see, this is where the team wants to go, and this is the player who's most likely to be able to help them get there. So
Dan, that news didn't break until like we were out in Vegas the last couple of days that he was going to avoid the suspension. Like you got to remember, late August, and he was still nowhere to be seen. He wasn't in camp. He wasn't anything.
But
so
he was
taking
so cheap.
a shot
I mean,
on him
you got to
crazy.
take shots like that on a team like that. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, honestly, I didn't think he was coming till at least October.
Yeah, I bought in on him that the last 3 days of drafts once that news broke. But before that, I thought it was crazy to draft him. I mean, if you were getting him in over pick 200 and you just wanted to see what happened, fine. But people were still taking him in the 110, 120 range when he was sitting on his couch and he still risked, a possible season-long suspension still.
Yeah, but I mean,
but
now you see the upside. So that's why you gotta make some of those picks. I mean, I'm not saying I took him on every team or anything. And basically what I did was, whenever his ADP was lower than Sampson's, I was taking Judkins, and whenever Sampson's went lower than Judkins, I was taking Sampson. So, I just wanted in on that backfield in some way because I knew they were going to be using the running backs a lot. And I think that's kind of the takeaway is you don't want to be shying away from backfields just because, this team sucks. You want to, identify if they're going to be using the running backs heavily. And if they are, then yeah, that's one you want to get in on. You don't want to get in on a team that sucks and isn't going to use the backfield. But anyway, enough on that. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was Genty. I think with Genty, I mean, we all see it. It's not necessarily Genty that's the problem here. It's the offensive line is not really blowing holes for him at all. He's getting hit very quick in the play. There's a lot of penetration into the backfield. There's just they're getting no push in the running game whatsoever. And so Genty is like I see the player and I like what I'm seeing. I just don't like what I'm seeing from that offense, and I'm not sure how well he can succeed. I mean, do you guys think there's hope for Genty here? Is it just kind of he's going to be sort of a mid-range RB2 at best?
I mean, for me, I think it's the offense. We need to see this Raiders offense change pretty quick. Trey Tucker cannot be getting 7-8 targets a game for this team to be successful. Maybe he's not getting, heavily covered, which is kind of crazy if he's on the field. But they need, even, what's his name, the receiver, Jacoby Myers. Like, he's got to be their top wide receiver threat. Bowers, maybe you want to say the injury, but he was off the injury last week, so hopefully that wasn't the case. And, this week I think is a huge week for them versus the Bears. They're home, they're underdogs. I haven't bet a side or a total. I've only bet wide receiver under-overs this year. But I kind of really like the Raiders, believe it or not, after getting blown out in D.C.
I think the Raiders need to find their identity because when we were drafting Genty at the end of the first round in drafts, we were thinking like, okay, this dude's going to have like the whole role to himself because that's why I was drafting him. I was looking at it as he's a 3-down back. They have nobody else, and I guess I assumed incorrectly in the fact that they were going to be able to use Zamir White and get him involved. But if they don't change their identity and have Genty in there on passing downs and use them a little bit more creatively and open up holes for him, it's going to be a bust season for him.
Yeah, I think the problem was we assumed some rational coaching there, and we haven't gotten it so far. And I mean, just as an aside, do you guys think Bowers looked all right? I thought he did not look like himself last week.
Yeah, I think he's still banged up.
Yeah.
It's going to take weeks. We talked about it last week. Some of these guys, you either sit like a Tucker Kraft. I mean, Tucker Kraft didn't sit. I'm saying they got banged up. You're either good enough to go or you could get out there, tough it out, be a decoy at like 80%, 75%. Kraft did it this week. You saw the numbers affected, obviously, and you see Bowers. But you know what? We're going to look up in week 7 or 8 when Bowers is back to full strength, and he's going to be dropping his 25-point games, and everything's going to be all good in the world. But we're just going to have to get through it. It's frustrating when you draft Bowers in the 2nd and you got to eat 8-point games because you could get that from, you're getting that from Jawan Johnson off the free agent, list. So that's the frustrating part. But, we're all dealing with injuries already and stuff like this. So, there's bust all over the place. Add Bowers to the list, but at least that there's a better road ahead for Bowers.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. All right, guys, let's do a quick ad break and we'll be right back.
Hey, I love fantasy football. I love card collecting. And there is a new innovator in the fantasy space, which I also love, called Game Blazers, that is combining the joy of ripping packs with the joy of fantasy sports. And it's a free-to-play game. We're talking about $35,000 every week in guaranteed prizes, $750,000 total this year. They're going to be giving out in guaranteed prizes in a free-to-play game. Go to GameBlazers.com. The code is PLAYER100. PLAYER100 gets you a $100 deposit match at Game Blazers. You go there, you sign up for free, you start ripping packs, and then jump into their mini games. You get some experience points, you upgrade your cards, and then boom, 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 you're set up to exploit a new fantasy game with lots of guaranteed money. Go to GameBlazers.com. The code is PLAYER100 for that $100 deposit match, and you can thank me later.
All right, guys. Well, obviously, after 3 weeks, we're starting to get some stronger opinions on players. We were just talking about a few of them. So let's dig into the top 50 or so players, first 4 rounds, however you want to call it, of our drafts, and what players are concerning you guys. I mean, or which. Obviously, anybody can have a bad week, but which players are you really worried about going forward? Not just what they've done so far, but going forward. Nelson, why don't you get us going on that?
I mean, one guy that right now is really struggling is Brian Thomas. And watching those games, I think it's like 2 things. One, it looks like he's got some type of wrist injury. I think that's legit because he's got the yips. Like, he's just dropping easy catches right now, which that's concerning. And then just the fact that like he can't get like on the same page with Lawrence. Like, I think the usage is there, the snaps are there. I'm just hoping that this doesn't turn into like a Tyreek Hill type of injury where we find out there's more to it, like at the end of the season with like his wrist injury, even though he's like playing through it. Because like I said, right now it looks bad. He's making a lot of drops where he could have had like a 20-point game easily, and we would be feeling a lot better about Thomas right now on our teams. And that didn't happen. And then there's 2 more receivers. Marvin Harrison, he dropped like a 70-yard touchdown pass where there was blown coverage. Again, if he catches that and he takes it to the house, we're not even having this conversation. Marvin Harrison, great game, over 20 points, and we're happy. Calvin Ridley is another guy. He 7 targets, 1 catch. Like I don't know. I don't know if that's possible, but it seems like him and Brian Thomas are doing this often, where they're getting the targets, but the receptions are not there. So I'm worried about those 3 guys. Those 3 guys worry me, and those are all guys that I do have.
Well, Nelson, being that you mentioned Calvin Ridley and this like horrific start, it's not like this one game. is like starting like week 4. Are you starting him, like saying I drafted him in the top 5 rounds, he's an automatic start? Or
He's the fakest alpha ever.
This is always the major fantasy issue we have as fantasy players here is how long do we stick with our top picks? Okay, because I got plenty of round 4 Calvin Ridley as well. And how long do you take this slap in the face each week? Okay, because I look across my rosters and I got the Calvin Ridley 3 in a lot of my lineups this past week. And the other teams have the T. Higgins 2 in it. So, you know, when you have those bomb games and the other ones have the CD Lamb 0s, like, you know, you're playing with one less player each week. And for Ridley, you're playing with one less player for 3 weeks now, you know. So going forward, when do you pull the cord on a Calvin Ridley, knowing that that's probably the week that he drops the 6 for 80 and a touchdown and you want to kick yourself, you know? So I'm interested to hear what you guys do with Ridley.
I've already benched him. I mean, I don't have much, but I benched him.
You benched him coming into this past week already, Dan?
Yes, absolutely.
For who?
I thought about it, but I didn't.
Let me while these other guys are answering, let me look up for who.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I really thought about it this week and wish I did do, what Dan did. For me, let's just stick to the second round. Guys that Nelson didn't mention. There's 2 guys. It's Drake London and Ladd McConkey. For me, I know when I mentioned it in week 1 about London, I got screamed at. But if you go through week 14 last year, like I tried saying about him and Mooney actually had more yards than him. And they're both involved. And through 2 weeks being on the field together, Mooney has 15 targets. He has 12. I understand London, had a tough matchup this week, and they got shut out. But Penix has got to be a bit of a concern right now. I know he looked good in a couple of games ending last year, but so did Bryce Young. And we were, I was buying the Bryce Young Kool-Aid because he was so late and all that. Ladd McConkey is concerning to me. I still think he's a fantastic player, and I have hope for him, especially if they're going to throw the ball.
You said last week you weren't concerned with Ladd. Now a week later you are?
No, I am, because after this week I look and I see all the targets, and I'm still believing he will do it, because if you look last year, the second half he blew up. So, but when I look at it and I see Quentin Johnson again, he's got what? I mean, now you're looking at a guy that I didn't believe in. I don't think most people believed in, because he was a free agent, in some leagues entering the season. And this guy's got 11 touchdowns in his last 17 games and is looking like a different player. Surtain was around him last week too. And, so I am concerned. I'm not saying he's done. I'm not saying Drake London's done. I'm saying I have concerns for these 2 players. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you would have told me that Shane Waldron was the pass coordinator or whatever the hell in Jacksonville prior to the season, I did not know that. and that is probably the scariest thing regarding that whole situation there, because everybody seems to, break out of their shell when he's dead and gone from the team. So, I mean, those are the 2 guys I'm looking at, second rounders, that really, you have to have from where they went. Ladd was pretty much a second round pick. Maybe he sprinkled an early third once in a blue moon. And London went from a fringe first rounder or the turn to a top 10 to a mid round first round pick that last week. So those are the guys
London definitely moved into the top 8 or 9 overall. For whatever reason, I'm not that concerned about London, the player. But I guess when I say that, I mean, I'm more concerned about Penix, who I think is going the J.J. McCarthy route. And I think he's trash. And I think that there's a possible chance that we see Kirk Cousins back under center for the Falcons, which at this point I'm kind of rooting for to save Drake London and this Falcons offense. I'd rather have the veteran back there than Penix, who looked terrible. But, Ladd McConkey, we talked about it the last couple of weeks. I think Ladd McConkey's great too, Matt. But, with the emergence of Quinton and Quentin and Keenan Allen here, it's just spread too wide, and it's a different situation now. So, is Ladd McConkey going to have those games where he drops 20, 25 fantasy points? Yeah, but when we draft guys in the middle of the second round, we want that every week, that consistency of 20-plus points, the Puka Nakua. But it's not going to happen this year for Ladd. I see it a better outlook for Drake London, at least, to get back on track. But Ladd, I think we're in trouble. Now back to Nelson's point with that Jacksonville offense and Brian Thomas. Yeah, I'm worried too. I just think this offense, let's look at two offenses, in situations like this with new coaches, the Bears and the Jaguars with Liam Cohen and Ben Johnson coming in. I think the Bears offense is starting to click more, and Caleb and the offense is starting to click a little quicker than it will for Jacksonville. Maybe second half of the season. They were lost out there. They had a couple of instances where they weren't lining up in the right place. They had to take timeouts. I just think everyone's on a wrong page, and in their receivers and the quarterback, everyone's just a little slow to pick up the Liam Cohen offense, and it's going to be a struggle for maybe the first couple months of the season here, and that's going to spell first round bust for Brian Thomas. Okay, when you look at the whole first round in general right now, did we ever have this on our bingo card where the whole first round is almost like busting through 3 weeks? Because we could go straight through that whole first round. CMC's been good and Gibbs has been good, but and Bijan's been okay. But these receivers are all busting straight through. And now we have the Lamb injury. Neighbors just pulled a bomb, but he was great the first 2 weeks. So it's
Chris, being that you said that, the first round, would the first 4 picks be all running backs? JT, CMC, Gibbs, and Bijan? I mean, right now, if we were drafting, I mean, you can throw a wide receiver in there if you want to say
Puka would be right there.
Amon-Ra, maybe.
Sure. What they did with Neighbors the other day, the game plan was a disgrace. If you can't get Neighbors a target until the second half and get him some quick, buddy passes and at least get his hands on the ball and stuff. I don't care if he gets tackled at the line of scrimmage, but if you're in the second quarter and Neighbors hasn't touched the ball, your whole offensive staff should be fired into the sun. So that was frustrating for him as a first round elite wide receiver, especially coming off the game from the week before. Mm-hmm. But, listen, just to circle back, Nelson hit it on the head. Calvin Ridley's been the biggest disappointment in the top 50 for me. Followed up real close. I think you got to have major concerns with the Bengals with T. Higgins and Chase Brown. Chase Brown, early second-round pick. T. Higgins, early third-round pick. Big-time trouble for those 3 guys off the top of my head going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Chris, on those Ridley teams where I benched him, it was Pickens in one, so that was I think I might have drafted Pickens first. So I don't know if you would call that.
Whoa, so what? You took Pickens, your
Pickens over Ridley. That was my decision. That was one of the decisions. The other one I had to start 2 of Pickens, Keenan Allen, or Ridley, and I put Ridley on the bench. So, I don't know. I mean, those are basically the only places where I have Ridley. It seems like I really had strong wide receivers otherwise. So, it worked out for me pretty well on that particular instance. But
Keenan Allen. Dan, Keenan Allen is definitely one of those wide receivers that you took outside the top 100 that was sitting on your bench that you can now cover up a lot of open wounds right now at the wide receiver position, such as a Ridley.
Yeah, exactly.
Keenan Allen was your 5 or your 6. Now you put him in for Ridley until he gets his shit straight. Maybe same thing with T. Higgins. I'm looking at my teams this week, and I have some depth in some of these teams. And I'm already saying to myself, all right, I think maybe T. Higgins, I sit him down for a week or 2. I
think you gotta. I mean,
it's definitely in play.
Yeah,
I don't like that matchup against Denver, and how bad that offense looked against Minnesota. So
and how dominant the Broncos' defensive line and what they're going to do to Cincy's offensive line, and probably pressure Browning on the road. Surtain will probably be matched up both on Higgins here and Chase here. I think Chase had a good game against Surtain last year, if I'm not correct. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look that up. But he's going to be on one of these guys. I don't know if he's just going to follow Chase around and maybe that backfires and T. Higgins gets open for a couple. that's going to be something I'm going to have to look into for the rest of the week before setting my lineups. But it's not the ideal matchup going into week 4.
Yeah, that for sure. Really the only you guys covered all the ones I'm concerned about. I had one team that it was a prime time I drafted sitting right next to Chris that is just a factory of sadness. Drake London in the first, Chase Brown in the second, Tech McMillan, my one good pick, in the third. Jameson Williams over Igbuka.
Oh my God, we got to talk about Jameson Williams. There's so many players to cover today, guys, that are just so disappointing. Jameson Williams, everybody was hot on him, 4th rounder, and it's been
not everybody.
Huh?
Not everybody.
No,
I made a lot of mistakes in the early rounds, Chris. I'll be the first to admit it, but that was the one guy. And here's the thing that I screwed up on is not enough of Monra, but it wasn't adding up to me on Jameson how early he was going in some of the drafts.
Mm-hmm.
I would take him like in the middle of the 5th round when he was there. Like I thought that was like a fair price, but when like he was going like super early, it didn't make sense to me because we were already putting like the cart before the horse. Yeah. When at the end of the day, what stirs the drink for the Lions is Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Like they're the guys, not Jameson. Jameson's he's kind of like that, gadget player that, if he hits on a long one, fantastic, but
it's going to happen. And Nelson, it's going to happen every 4 weeks where it's going to happen every 4 or 5 weeks where JMO drops the 4 for 130 and 2 touchdowns on a couple bombs, and everybody's going to be like, oh, here we go. It's JMO season. And then next week it's going to be 2 for 27. But I think, Nelson, when we look back on draft season, it seemed like the consensus was Amon-Ra was the first round fade of many people. And when you implement that outlook of thinking, then I think that's why everybody came in on Jameson in the 4th and 5th, because they were like, well, if Amon-Ra is going to take a step back, okay, and he's going to be the fade, well, maybe now JMO's going to actually step up and be the 1B with Amon-Ra, or maybe take his throne or something like that. And I think that's why the whole fantasy industry, mostly, were so high on Jameson Williams. I have, same as you, Nelson, I have plenty of bad picks right now that don't look good. I was out on Jameson Williams. But yeah, go ahead. No.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, week 2, we put up like 20 points. You were just under. Last night.
On two bombs. That's the 1 week.
But that's what the guy had 1,000 yards on 58. But
it counts.
Last night, the opening part of the game, he had 2 catches, 43 yards.
And then he went to sleep.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, I'm not going to write this guy off just yet. I mean, I'd rather have him than Calvin Ridley easily. And I loved Calvin Ridley coming into this year. And I don't think – all I remember was week 1 on Twitter, not anybody here, but just on Twitter, all the stupid memes. Look at the Lions without Ben Johnson. The Lions in the last 2 games have put up 90 points against the Ravens. Okay, the other one was the Bears. But still, a Monday Night Football at Baltimore, 38 points is pretty damn impressive. And I mean,
that's great, but Jameson Williams still caught 2 balls in a 38-point performance.
They definitely didn't need him, though. I mean, they just ran the Ravens ragged.
I mean,
part of the reason to fade him.
Right.
And look, I mean, if you look at that game going in, at the end of that game, whatever, late 3rd, 4th quarter, that's when Amon-Ra took over. But going up to that point, he wasn't doing nothing either. And then he took over the game, and it happened. I
have a different philosophy when it comes to what receivers I target in drafts. I'm going to say that I'm taking Ridley 10 out of 10 times over Jameson, just on the simple fact that I want my receivers getting close to double-digit targets every game rather than relying on a guy that he's going to hit a home run with one of his 2 or 3 targets that he gets.
But
if you gave me right now, who rest of the season do I want, my Ridley or your JMO? I'm taking my Ridley still.
I'll take
100 out of 100 times.
And I was very high on Ridley. Coming into this year, the uncatchable balls but he isn't much of a difference from J-Mo. And I'm going to take that offense and that skill and that speed over. I'm hoping Ridley figures this out and the Titans figure this out. But
I hope he figures it out too. But I mean, let's face the facts. Ridley is a wide receiver 2 on his own team, basically, and that's what he's always been good at. He's always been. The only times he's ever really done well is when he's had a great wide receiver 1 across from him, a la Julio Jones. To me, the problem and the reason why, excuse me, I have very little Ridley is I felt like he was more of a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1 on his own team, and he's being forced to be the wide receiver 1 on his team, and it's just not a role that fits him. So that's why I was a little bit out on him. But that's just my thought on that. Last thing I want to say is Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, to me, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it looks to me like he's a guy who has always been a focal point of a game plan, and he's not now, and he's losing concentration. So when all of a sudden he does get the opportunity, he's not like into the game the way he needs to be into the game. I mean, that drop that he had this week was just absolutely unthinkable. And I know sometimes hey, you're sitting there all alone, and you get the cart ahead of the horse, and you forget to catch the ball. But to me, all that kind of stuff comes when you're not really expecting to be part of the game plan. You're just kind of resigned to the fact that you're a secondary player, and they need to fix that.
What do you mean by secondary player, Dan?
I mean that they're not prioritizing him in that offense, or Kyler just can't. Maybe he is the first read on a lot of plays. I don't know. I haven't looked at it that close, but I don't see them making enough of an effort to get him involved. I think the more involved a guy like him is, the better he's going to play. And I feel like he's kind of sitting there going, hey, I'm playing second banana to the running backs and to McBride, and yeah, they like me the best out of the wideouts, but still, we're just not getting that many targets. So, he's going through the motions.
I mean, I hit on it. He's definitely struggling because, like I said, he dropped an easy. Actually, wait a minute. He dropped a touchdown in the end zone also. That he had like caught it, and I thought like, oh, he caught that. That's a pretty good catch. A player of his like skill set, he's just got to hold on to that. Like he's got to make that play, even though it was semi-difficult. I think, again, we would be having a different conversation this morning if he catches that 70-yarder and or catches the touchdown in the end zone. If he catches both, we're talking about him as like Omarion Hampton, right? We go from like outhouse to the penthouse.
Remember after week 1, Nelson, how we were looking at Marvin Harrison? We were like, here it is. We're good to go. It's going to happen this year. And now it's been 2 slow weeks. So, listen, we play a week-to-week game, and everybody overreacts and underreacts to performances. If he comes out Thursday night and drops 7 for 90 and a touchdown, we're all here holding hands next week going, Marvin Harrison was the answer in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
He is – for whatever reason, I'm not as worried about Marvin Harrison as a lot of the other guys we've mentioned. I still think in this Arizona offense, it's him and McBride, and that's the offense. You take Connor out of it, they probably, go a little more pass heavy going forward. They can't rely on Connor as a 22 carry a game guy. So maybe there's more playing from behind. Maybe there's more, more in the pass game for Harrison. I still think he's going to be fine. Now, did we draft Harrison? Go ahead, what, Dan?
Yeah, here's the bottom line on Harrison. He's got 17 targets. That is 43rd among all wide receivers in the NFL right now. 43rd. There is no way he should be 43rd in the NFL in targets. That is true. Absolutely criminal misuse.
That is true. And coming out of college, he was, he has the hands. He showed it. It's just, the issue with him that people were worried about was the speed. So now if you take a problem with, dropping balls and then the speed, who knows? But I'm still holding out hope for Harrison. We'll see.
All right, sounds good. So let's kind of change it then. Let's talk about out of the top 6 rounds, which players are outperforming, or what do you wish? Which guys do you wish you had more of for whatever reason? Matt.
I'll do a quick 30-second hit here. I put down the first 6 rounds again from the GST to 29th to September 7th. I mean, obviously round 6, it's Roma Dunze easily. Olave's a volume monster right now. Round 5, Ricky Pearsall, he's just blowing up. James Cook in round 4 is probably the league winner, especially, if they're going to continue this umbrella defense against the Bills, just opening everything up. Round 3, I still think you're going to want one of those.
It's outside the top 72, past pick 72.
I thought we were doing top 6 rounds.
After round 7.
Okay. Then I screwed up the assignment.
That's all good. You failed this class. You failed this assignment, Matt.
but yeah, I mean, you have to say one thing about Olave. That was, what did he get? Like 14 targets, 10 catches, and 57 yards?
He's Wandell light.
But my bad.
No, all good. Nelson, you want to hit it?
The running backs. So a couple of guys that we're talking about, we wish we had more of, right?
Right.
Dan, that's the question.
Whoever's outperforming, or you wish you had more of, either one.
Okay.
So and it probably it's going to be both.
Gotcha. Okay. So for me, I was already heavily invested in these guys, in Javonte and J.K. Dobbins, but those would be 2 guys like I wish I just had gone like totally all in on because they fit what I was doing as far as zero running back, hero running back type of drafting. And that would have been, as I go through my lineups, it's nice being able to put one of those guys in as like your RB2. And you've got like 4 strong receivers. You got a good tight end, good quarterback play. I'm noticing that those are the teams right now that are doing well. And the teams that are kind of struggling is the ones where I kind of waited on wide receiver. And, if I didn't hit on the right guys, then, those teams are struggling right now.
I don't even know what's winning right now in fantasy. I mean, obviously we have the Jonathan Taylors and James Cook at running back, but like, I don't, if you went early at wide receiver heavy, most of them have been bust. I really don't know what the right combination is of players.
The 2 guys, Chris, that have stuck out obviously is Amon-Ra and Puka. Those are the 2 early receivers. The rest of the receivers have actually been on the struggle bus.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so it's really weird. I think the middle rounds, if you got the right middle round, the Roma Dunzes, the Olave's been the Pearsalls, like if you hit the middle rounds and you built off of like a CMC, Jonathan Taylor, if you were a Bijan owner, and then like that's the right combination right now. I don't know how long that's going to last. These receivers are eventually going to wake up and start putting up numbers, but right now. Those middle round receivers, a lot of them that you just mentioned, George Pickens has put up back-to-back 18-point games. If you have a combination of these guys that are giving you 17 to 20, Jalen Waddle had a couple 17-point games. Guys like that in the middle rounds, you stick them in with a Pearsall and a Dunze, you're getting by and you're putting up decent numbers. If you drafted those guys,
Abuka, Pittman has actually been solid.
Pittman's on my list here of guys outside the top 6 rounds. I wish I had more of. I would say at the wide receiver position, I'd love to have more Michael Pittman and Keenan Allen. I wish I had more Jordan Mason, at least for the next month or 2 here. I think he's going to be a bell cow top, RB1, back end RB1, maybe even top 8 type of running back.
Chris, sorry, I just wanted to interject real quick. So I mentioned the running backs, but there was one receiver too that I had written down as a guy that I wish I had way more of, and he went for free, was Quentin Johnson.
Yeah.
Watching him, he just looks different.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a menace. Like he's going to be a problem this year.
Yeah. And this is why I think this Chargers offense for fantasy is going to be really interesting every week to watch, because I think you could look at Justin Herbert as a top 5 fantasy quarterback now. He's got three weapons, okay? And I mean, what else more can you ask for? He's got a solid veteran PPR guy. He's got he's got Ladd who could stretch, he could run all over the field, and now he's got Johnson who could go deep. So Herbert and this Chargers offense, if you stack these guys or have a couple of them, I think you're in for a solid fantasy season here. The last guy I'll say at tight end is Jake Ferguson here. Jake Ferguson, we all were in love with Jake Ferguson last year, drafted him, and then he got hurt, and it was a disaster. Jake Ferguson's going to hit the board as a top 5 tight end this year.
26 targets.
I mean, a lot of that is the CeeDee Lamb injury, so there's a little bit.
Sure.
There's a little.
But
bit
he had 12 the last. Before.
He was a solid tight end before. He just went up to.
I agree.
He went up a level after the Lamb.
He's tight end 1 right now.
Yeah.
Just real quick to rewind, when we were talking about the Colts and Pittman, who I think does deserve it. He's had 24% targets the last 2 weeks. But Alec Pierce was a guy that for like $1 or $2 I was picking up last week where available. I bet him over the 60 yards plus 500, and he was going to have a major game. There was one catch that was ruled incomplete, and he got hurt on, but he had 67 yards going, and then when he got hurt is when Pittman really stepped up after that. But Alec Pierce.
Would you rather have Pierce? Would you rather play Pierce or avoid Downs?
I mean, I don't. Every week it seems to be like changing with the Colts. They really, like I said, Pittman got buoyed by the Pierce injury this week, because before Pierce got hurt, Pierce was the guy. Like I said, I bet that game. I was watching it, and he just. I mean, it wasn't a catch, but it was a catch at first. And he was about to have a monster game, and he went out with 67 yards on 4 catches. So I don't know what the Colts are doing right now, but Pittman, I would say right now, is the guy based on the 2 weeks with 24% target share. So we'll, week 4, maybe it's Warren again, or maybe it's Downs, because Downs the previous 2 was 8 and 6. He was leading the team in targets. So.
A lot of good comments.
I'm with you there. The one player I want to mention, since I haven't gotten in here yet, I got to talk to you.
Matty, listen, Matty, I'm a little bit disappointed because you and I had a personal conversation on the phone, and I mentioned to you, I said, listen, I know your love for Dan.
Weren't invited to this conversation.
No, I excluded Dan and Chris. This was a private conversation between Matty and I. And I said to him, I go, Matty, I know your love for Downs, and he goes at a decent price that it's not going to hurt you. But Michael Pittman's the number 1 there in that offense. And
I mean, we could go you told me earlier not to draft Tucker Kraft this year neither. And then a bird came in your ear. I was drafting him early.
Matt, you took that so to heart, Matt.
Ready. Hold on. Hold on.
You're throwing him under the bus.
He's throwing me under the bus.
No. But I'll admit it. So I had Tucker Kraft on my fade list. Okay.
You came out to me and said that, yeah.
Yeah, I had him on my fade list. I can go check the date and see when I changed it. Tucker Kraft went from on my fade list to my most owned tight end. So I did a complete 180.
That's fine.
And I owned it. I even said to you, I go 100%. I that up.
And I appreciate the phone call. And we've had phone calls in the past where you've told me to draft guys and I told you, and we've disagreed on. I'm not going to name names now, but
why don't we have these personal, private conversations?
We've done this, and I appreciate it.
Why don't you call to talk about and tell me fades?
I got to change the name of the show to Dirty Laundry, I think.
Dirty Laundry.
I mean, we are still at 3 weeks into the season. Are we not?
That-
All right.
Kobe
that's
wants
good
to
enough.
know.
Three
All
weeks
right,
is good
all
enough.
right, you people,
Jones
come
or
on.
two or more
Let's.
wide
I want to
receivers?
talk. I want to talk. James,
Listen, how many private
please.
conversations has Dan and Chris gotten from me? Right?
Let's-
That's what I'm saying is this is high level private conversation, Maddie and I, and he still wouldn't listen to me.
And you didn't even have to. You didn't even have to go
I
on.
give up.
Okay.
I'm never going to be able to talk about James Cook, am I?
You didn't even have to go in the
really
Discord,
not.
Matt. You didn't even have to go in the Discord. You got a personal call from Nelson. Are
You know
you
what?
kidding me?
I'm going to take the high road here. I'm going to take the high road.
All right.
Let's
All
not
right.
get
I am
Maddie
going
all
to talk
worked
about
up.
James Cook, and I don't care if we have to be on 3 hours for me to get this in, okay?
Go ahead,
That's the way it
Dan.
goes.
Take control of the show, Dan.
Go ahead, Dan.
All right, James Cook. I always find a reason to fade him every year. And every year he burns me. So I cannot wait to find out what's the reason why I'm going to fade him next year. Because once again, I get burned by not drafting enough James Cook. So that's all I'm going to say about that. That guy is legit. He's got the juice. I was worried about too many touchdowns last year and regression and, holdout, all that kind of stuff. 100 reasons to fade him, and all of them were stupid. So
I was wrong on that one. I thought the touchdown, because the whole point of why I was in on James Cook last year, I thought it was going to be because of the receptions that was going to make him a fantasy superstar. And it was the touchdowns that got him there. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, he's not scoring 16 touchdowns, again. And I was definitely wrong on that. The dude's legit.
Think about that whole from the middle of the third round to the sixth round. There's going to be only two guys that are like the real answer at running back, and it's James Cook and hopefully Amari and Hampton. You can't name another running back that's going to be a solid pick that went in that.
Wait, from 3 to 6?
At 2.5 round range, that's going to help your fantasy team out, in my opinion.
What about Kenneth Walker?
Yeah. Who are you going to say? Kamara, Walker?
yeah, I don't know.
Not Kamara. What about Walker?
He had 14 carries for 15 yards or something like that.
Yeah,
and
that
Charbonnet
game
wasn't there.
That game was a blowout. And
I'm
It was a
talking
blowout,
difference
but there was no
makers.
Charbonnet. I mean, that should have been a Walker smash spot.
Right.
It wasn't. He's still got a couple touchdowns to bail him out, but yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
worried about Walker.
I don't know. I mean,
Listen, if you feel differently, say it. It's fine. If you think Kenneth Walker belongs in that category with James Cook and Amari and Hampton, say it.
James Cook belongs in the as of right now, from what we've seen, he's been one of the best backs. So I mean, he belongs up there with the JTs and the CMCs, because if they're going to continue to play the Bills like this.
So the point was, guys that are going to really be difference makers from picks 30 to 60 overall. There's only two running backs that I could see elevating your fantasy team to a league-winning team.
Okay, but so my counter
would
be before this week, you would not have said Hampton. So I mean, things change.
I know this is a prediction. This is a prediction for the rest of the way. There's two guys. If you feel Walker belongs in that conversation, then that's your opinion. I don't.
From the volume they are going to do, and his ability, I can't write him off after 3 weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Wait, Dan, we got one comment there. I run a Jalen Waddle support group out of GST. Yeah, that might be true. But that was a crazy game last week. How Waddle wasn't even involved and then scores at the end of the second quarter there, saves his night. But that's a different conversation. Go ahead, Dan. What do you got?
All right, yeah. So let's move on. Let's talk about the Bengals. I mean, we kind of hit on it a little bit, but any other thoughts on the Bengals? Their upcoming schedule: at Denver, Detroit at home, and at Green Bay. Looks like an absolute disaster. You guys think it's Jover for the Bengals, or are any of their players even playable? Is there anybody you feel good about playing right now from the Bengals?
I mean, obviously, listen, the question should be Jamar Chase. How do you view him going forward here? Is he still a wide receiver one? Is he still a top 12 wide receiver? In my opinion, yeah, he has to be. The targets are going to be there and everything like that. The way I think this Bengals offense plays out is this next 2-3 weeks probably are a lot of the same and probably a disaster. And then Browning starts getting his feet under him. This offense starts getting a little bit of a rhythm. And then everybody, T. Higgins comes back into play. But right now, for the foreseeable future, for the next 2-3 weeks, I'd be worried about the stats that Chase and Higgins are going to put up. You got to knock them down. T. Higgins is probably a flex type player. Chase is probably viewed at wide receiver 2 type numbers. Chase Brown, you got to play him. I don't think anybody's sitting him unless you have some, maybe this might be crazy. I'm just throwing this out. Maybe you have, a first round CMC, a second round Chase Brown, and you have a Trey Benson sitting on your bench now, where you bring in a Trey Benson as your RB2 if all your receivers are solid. I don't know what you do with Chase Brown. I think you're going to see a lot of the same going forward now. I wouldn't play him in this game versus Denver unless I was, in desperate need. I don't know.
He's getting the volume, so it's hard to sit him because at the end of the day, we have running backs that we're hoping get touches, and we're we don't know what to expect from like Trevion Henderson, Bill. It looked like a smash spot with no Eckler, and he's still playing in this like 3-way committee. With Chris Rodriguez going from inactive to getting the most snaps on the team. So like Chase Brown, at least he's going to be on the field. He's going to get, all the carries, and some targets. But the matchups just don't play out well for him the next couple of weeks. Detroit is good against the run. Green Bay is nasty. Denver's
problem.
It's going to be a problem. You can't expect a big game out of him the next few weeks for sure.
Dan, can you just throw up that question Scott Colby asked, Chase Brown or J.K. Dobbins? That's exactly the situation I'm talking about right there. If J.K. Dobbins is your number 3, and maybe he sits on your bench the first couple of weeks, and you have Chase Brown's your 2 in the second round, I'm starting Dobbins over Chase Brown this week in that game.
I think that's a legit question. I have those lineup calls.
Yeah.
I think for this stretch, you have to go Dobbins right now, especially Dobbins versus the Bengals defense versus Chase Brown versus the Denver defense.
Right.
I agree.
I think that one's setting up. Here's the thing. I will say this. After they lost Burrow, it was just a terrible – just heading into, they had to go on the road, a Viking team that got dominated on national television. It was just a horrible spot. They just lost, like I said, they lost Burrow for a year. These next few weeks are going to be tough, but you're hoping, we've seen Browning at least be competitive and do things. You're hoping for garbage time too. Like that did not even emerge for us. It got so out of hand. And look, Hawkinson was catching touchdowns. They were up 30 points in the second half. It was kind of wild. For the next, for this stretch upcoming, outside of Chase, it's really hard. Look, I'm going to start Brown on teams I have to, but things change in a hurry is basically the point. The Jalen Warrens, the Jordan Masons, the Cam Scatterboos. We talked about that in the summer. These were guys I wanted at least 2 out of 3 of those. Now they look all of a sudden look like those are guys you want. And so the next 4 weeks after the first 4 weeks is like, can you survive? If you're 1-2, can you survive? And now things are going to change. Lamb is out. There's some key injuries here. Connor's out. So things will change, and let's see how the landscape develops from here.
Real quick, we would all start Jordan Mason over Chase Brown, right? If Mason was our 3. Jalen Warren, real quick, around the horn, Jalen Warren or Chase Brown?
I think I got to go Warren right now. But, it's going to be matchup dependent. And like I said, the matchups are terrible.
Who are they playing, the Vikings?
Yeah.
I probably play Chase Brown.
Yeah, that's right.
Dan?
Playing the Vikings, yeah, I'd probably go Chase Brown there too.
Okay, ETN or Chase Brown? Dan?
I don't really love the matchup for ETN this week.
Even without Bosa now?
Yeah,
I'm going Chase Brown on that one.
Yeah.
probably Brown.
And last, I think we all agreed on J.K. Dobbins. Last one, Javonte Williams.
That's another brutal matchup. I'm going Chase Brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the range you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
There's some
think you
brutal
got-
matchups.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you got to be rolling them out there. We have a question from the chat. Trade Hendo for Chase Brown in redraft.
Trade Chase.
Trade who? There it is.
Your boy.
I was
You
thinking.
forgot about him already?
For some reason, I thought it was Mason for Chase Brown.
I'd rather have Chase Brown.
I mean, I got it. Maybe it's close. Because here's what I'm going to look at rest of season. Here is: do you believe that Chase Brown is going to ascend? Do you believe that Chase Brown is going to be a key cog in the passing game? If you don't believe that, then you don't do that. If you believe that he is going to fulfill that role, and we've seen, like I said, you saw the game versus Miami. The big play that Stevenson made was designed for Henderson. So I do think that, I mean, it's tough because I do like Chase Brown a lot, but I'm looking at this, the schedule ahead, and I mean, maybe I stay with Brown if you want to believe in that too, but I don't know. That's a fair.
I got to go with the running back that's going to be on the field.
We could wrap this up by saying, listen, Chase Brown this year is just going to be a losing pick. That's it. It is what it is. I'm sorry. Will he have his weeks where he gets you 15 to 25 fantasy points? Sure. But overall, it's been 3 losing weeks as a Chase Brown owner. It's going to be plenty more. It's just going to be a losing pick in the second round.
It kind of seems that way. I mean, in the second round, obviously, it's, you wish you went with almost anybody else. I do think there's a point in the season where he could be, he could be helping you again. But it's been just a brutal run out, losing Burrow and then this, this stretch of games coming up while the team is adjusting to not having Burrow. That's just, that's about the worst possible way it could have gone for Brown. So, and I've got probably more Brown than anybody else in the room here. So I'm hating that one, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. All right, real quick, we're gonna toss in one more quick break, and then we'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. We kind of talked a little bit about injuries, but and of course we all hate them. Let's get the thing that we all have to say all the time. We all hate injuries. Everybody knows that, but it's also undeniable that they're going to happen every year. And that opens up the gates of opportunity for some other player to shine. And I'm curious, what's the injury shakeup that has you kind of excited to start a formerly fringe player on your teams? Chris?
This is no doubt. This would probably be consensus here, this answer, but Trey Benson, for me, I'm a big Trey Benson guy. If you know my draft style from this summer and going in, my strategy was to get Trey Benson every round 9 or 10 of every draft I was in. So I have all the Trey Benson shares. Sunday, Connor, great player, everything like that. But we play a fantasy game. That could be a major swing injury for me. I was hoping that, Trey Benson was eventually going to eat in and be a 50-50 guy with, if Connor did miss time, Trey Benson could ascend to a high-end RB2. I'm hoping that Trey Benson becomes Jordan Mason here, basically, guys. And then I get it for the rest of the season, hopefully, if he stays healthy. But, Aaron Jones will be back in 3-4 weeks to deal with the Mason thing. It's just a big ad, it's what we draft the handcuffs for in that 9th, 10th, 11th round range. We'll see what happens here. I think Trey Benson is a 15 to 20 carry a game guy for Arizona. I like his talent. I like the way he looked all preseason. And we'll see where this goes from here. But, Trey Benson goes from all my benches into my flex spot, or if I was a little light on an RB2, he's basically the running back version of Keenan Allen, where if I have any holes that I want to cover up right now, Trey Benson comes into my lineup, and I think he performs as a top 50 overall fantasy player rest of the season.
For me, it's easily Scatterboo. I mean, the injury to Tracy has him out, where they're saying 2 to 4 weeks. I always thought Scatterboo was inevitable. He was going from the 7th round to the 10th round, depending on where you started drafting. Early on, he was going in the 7th. By the end, he was going in the 10th. For me, he's my most drafted player outside of Brashad Smith, who I do still believe in. Brashad Smith will be a factor at some point.
You got the Brashad mentioning, Maddie, this week.
You know it. You got to look at that backfield. At some point, he even got 2 carries. So at some point, something's got to happen. Mm-hmm. Something's got to happen there. And again, just look at the injuries. Mason is now a guy you want to be heavily invested in. You want to have Jordan Mason. So it's a crazy game. It's crazy every week to week, like Chris said earlier. So, pray you guys stay healthy.
Yep. All right, Nelson.
I actually don't have any guys that I'm really excited about.
Nelson's miserable. He's like, nothing excites
yeah, me. I wasn't one of those guys that were like jumping for joy with the injuries. I don't have like a ton of Hampton. I don't have a ton of Benson. I got a little bit of Scatterbo, but not enough for like where I got real excited about it. But I don't have Tracy either. So it's kind of like, yeah,
This is why Nelson's sitting in the dark room, so we can't see the subtle little tears rolling down his cheeks.
Honestly, like I already kind of have my running backs that were going in those rounds, like, Benson, Scatterbo. So I've got like J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams, and those guys. So like,
but Nelson, do you not agree that a Benson and a Scatterbo now take teams to another level? That
100%
sitting on people's benches. That now I'm not being
a hater. I'm just being honest that I'm not excited about it because I just don't have the shares that like for it to like impact me in that way. But 100%, for people that have Benson and Scatterbo and guys that, I'm being a little bit of a hater on this one. Mm-hmm. Hampton in the 3rd round, based off of what I've seen from him, I didn't think that was a good pick. Mm-hmm. And I think people got bailed out from the Najee injury because I think Najee was going to continue to eat into his snaps and his touches, not the other way around. I don't think Hampton was ascending.
I can't argue that point right there. Hampton was in trouble. Harris goes down. Hampton now is looked at in a way better light. So I can agree with that. But what I can say is after 3 weeks now, after this past week, I think a lot of fantasy lineups and teams are going to look a lot different now. That a lot of things happened in week 3 that opened up fantasy lineups and teams and their benches. So
this is shaking up the fantasy power rankings in whatever league you're in, basically. I think that's a good takeaway for sure. And I'm in the short term at least, I'm definitely excited about Pickens and Ferguson, who we already kind of talked about but with CD Lamb out, the passing game is going to go through those 2 guys. And if you want a sneaky ad, I don't know how sneaky it is, but Cavante Turpin I think is going to definitely get an uptick in targets as well.
Or now, can I ask real quick, Cavante Turpin or Jalen Tolbert, who would you guys rather go after in Fab this week, if any at all? Or do you see them evenly?
In my Fab notebook, I've got Turpin. He's the more dynamic player.
Yeah, he's the more exciting guy. I don't think Tolbert's ever lived up to his
Tolbert played more snaps.
But I like Tolbert.
And Turpin got banged up again.
He's a guy that
Tolbert's a backfiller, and Turpin I think is, as Nelson said, he's the guy with the juice. He has more roles too on the team. He's playing as a wide receiver. They use him in the return game. They use him, sometimes as a running back on jet sweeps, all that kind of stuff. So he's got more ways to score.
One of these guys is going to factor in though for this
Well-
next month here as a fantasy contributor, like a Trey Tucker type, or not a Trey. Basically somebody that you got for a couple bucks off waivers, and that actually can play them as a flex player and get some decent production out of. Because it can't all go through Pickens and Ferguson. There's got to be a third option on a team with a bad defense, probably playing from behind the next couple of weeks, and Dak chucking it all over. One of these guys is going to hit.
Probably
the
going to be more Javante too. I mean, to be honest.
But my question would be, can Pickens be that alpha number one over this next month going forward? Like really dominate? That's I'm hoping
early
teams that got him.
It was a struggle for him in Pittsburgh, but different circumstance now.
Well, this is much different circumstances, I think.
The early take on this, from what I've heard with Pickens, is maybe it's not that great of, it's just because Lamb is out and Pickens, ascends to the number one and gets or more attention and targets. Maybe it's not that good of a situation for him to be in. I like to think of it as you guys, as there'll be more targets and more opportunities for him. But maybe he's not built to be the attention alpha number one.
This is a contract
I
year.
disagree with that. I think Pickens 100% has the skill set that he can win one-on-one matchups, no problem, against any corner. He's that talented. And there's just I don't see how you can look at it in a negative way for Pickens. CD out, you're talking about 10-plus targets.
Yeah.
That has to go somewhere. So, like, Pickens makes out in this. Whether he can take advantage is a different story, but
that's the question. That's the question I was.
But 100%, this is good for Pickens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is their schedule besides Green Bay this week? What's the next 3 weeks after that? Does anybody have that up right now? I should have.
Dallas, they've got Green Bay, at the Jets, and at Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So none of that is really scary other than Green Bay. So
I was checking.
Looking at Sauce Gardner in 2 weeks, but regardless,
he's overrated.
The other question with Dallas is, what is your take on Dak Prescott? Like, how far does he fall over the next month, or does he not fall at all?
I have a ton of Dak, and he's on all my benches this week. I'm streaming quarterbacks. I'm gonna pick up quarterbacks off the waiver wire like a scrub with a good matchup.
All right, but what are we talking, Nelson? What are we talking? Because I have probably just as much, if not more, Dak than you. Luckily, I look at most of my Dak teams, and they're backed up by Herbert or Daniel Jones.
See, that's beautiful.
Now, those two guys will be starting, but how deep are we going into waiver wire to start someone over Dak?
Let's just
Stafford?
throw a couple of who would you start out there?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. Let me pull up my Fab notebook. 1 second.
Well, Matt Stafford, yes or no?
That'd be matchup based for me.
Yeah.
Stafford over Dak.
Bo Nix?
This week, yes.
Nix?
Bo Nix? That's not even close. I'm playing Nix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, put it this way. I'll play Geno Smith this week against the Bears rather than Dak.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but this is more of a, just to be clear, this is more of a 1 week benching for you, just mostly based on the opponent, or this is not like I'm off of Dak, right?
No. I'm not off of Dak. I can't be. I fucking have 30% Dak.
Yeah, you got to just get through these next couple of weeks. But. Exactly.
But their offensive line is hurt. They're missing, I think, Booker, one of their key guys. CD's out. Like, this just looks like a bad situation against Green Bay that I just don't want any part of.
But you know what's going to happen? It's going to be 21-0 Green Bay in the second quarter. Dak's going to compile 340 and 2 touchdowns, throwing from behind for 3 quarters, and then we're all going to get egg on our face.
And 4 picks.
It's possible.
That is.
Listen, we'll break some news here. Mike Evans out 3 to 4 weeks. Just hit the wire. That's another huge injury that came out of this past week. I wanted to somehow just throw out there and get it in on this show that one of the most impressive players at any position Baker Mayfield, man. Baker Mayfield's getting it done. It sucks that he just loses Mike Evans now at the time where Godwin is just about to come back into this offense. I wanted to say if Mike Evans was healthy with this kid Ibuka and Chris Godwin coming into this offense, Baker Mayfield was going to make a run at a top 3 fantasy quarterback season. The way he runs, he gets it down on the ground. He takes off, throwing everything. Baker Mayfield continues to impress.
But he did that last year, Chris. Remember when they lost Godwin?
I mean,
Evans missed some time. I mean, he was Kate Otten was making plays.
I don't think Chris is saying it's a surprise. He's just saying it's happening again.
No, I'm just exactly. Okay. It's happening again. And think about in that range of quarterback, like, Bo Nix was going over Baker Mayfield in a lot of drafts. Nobody would take that right now, in my opinion. When he has a fully loaded offense, Baker Mayfield's a top 5 fantasy quarterback every week.
Yeah,
it was great how he said it was personal. The guy that cut him in Carolina was a defensive coach.
Yeah,
yeah. That's probably the best penthouse to the outhouse to the penthouse story we've seen in a long time. I mean, Baker Mayfield from number 1 overall pick to getting kicked around by about 3 or 4 teams to all of a sudden being right back up at the top. So,
could I ask a question that's not on the show sheet?
No.
It's allowed. I'll allow it, Matt.
You're allowed. Over the first 3 weeks, like I said, week 1, it was so impressive. Breece Hall, going forward, how do we view Breece Hall? I think that's
a lot differently than week 1.
It's a week. It's a week to week of emotion. And
I'd be excited about him this week. Listen, at the same time, where's the Braylon Allen bandwagon right now?
I bought into some Braylon Allen, and that is a big regret.
My God.
I will put my hand up. I'm just Breece Hall looked so good week 1.
He still does. To me, when he gets the ball, he still does. I'd be excited to put him back in my lineup this week versus Miami.
Yeah.
I just thought there was somebody worth touching on.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do a couple quick questions. One player we don't need a lot of discussion on, I think, but one player started out hot, you don't believe in long term, and Trey Tucker is off the table. You cannot mention his name.
I'll go first. I'll go ahead. I'll get this out of the way real quick. For me, it's still Javonte Williams. I'm not buying in. I don't believe it. Now that he lost, Booker, like Nelson said, the offensive line is falling apart. The matchups coming up, Green Bay, I wouldn't have him in my lineups right now. I'm still not buying it. Call me crazy, but no,
you're crazy.
Williams. I'm not buying in now.
I buy Javonte more than I buy Travis Etienne. I'll say that.
Expect a call, another private conversation from Nelson tonight. What the F is your deal, man? Why did you keep going in on ETN?
Well, that was my guy. I was going to fade, but you mentioned Javonte.
Nelson's about to fire off a Trey Henderson, RJ Harvey dig. It's coming real soon.
In terms of ownership, Javonte's just under ETN, so, who am I to argue with Matt? There. But I'll tell you this, I'd rather have ETN right about now than RJ Harvey and Trevion Henderson.
There it is.
I don't think that lasts. I want to see where we are in 3 weeks with that. I think it's changing. I think the Jacksonville.
You give me Ibuka and Pearsall where Harvey was going, and then wait to the 9th round and take ETN. I'll take that all day long.
Okay,
and that's what I was doing.
Craft this up before, so
no. I'm not cherry picking. That's essentially as draft season was going, I got off of Harvey and said there's wide receivers here in this pocket that are no brainers compared to potential part-time running back that has upside, but Dobbins is going to be used in this offense, and I started getting a little leery with Harvey.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's 3 weeks and things are changing already for week 4. So,
maybe Dobbins.
I'll
I
say-
like Dobbins. I'm not saying Dobbins
Yeah.
was. I was drafting Dobbins too, even on teams that have Harvey, and I did sit Harvey this week on the teams that had Dobbins. So, but I don't think Harvey is somebody that's done. I think there's too much talent, especially in that scheme that we've seen.
Best thing that happened is Tyler Beatty went away this past week, so that's the underlying good news for Harvey. You know, the one I don't buy that really went off the first couple weeks, and we saw a little bit something different this week was Zay Flowers. You know, there's just
what was that last night? Holy shit!
Too many mouths to feed in that offense, and they are too willing to spread it around. They're not really that interested in getting any one player going necessarily. I mean, you know, look at Mark Andrews.
I'm not ready to say that.
Yeah, I'm not.
Too many mouths to feed. It turned into an Andrews game, you know, where he was
Monday night.
He's back.
Monday
the same
night
thing
football.
happened again this year.
Again.
Monday Night Football is
On everyone's benches.
Yeah.
But that's my point is the Zay Flowers is not enough of a, you know, he's not one of those players that they're going to sit there and feature. You know, they're going to go with whatever's working, and what was working last night was Andrews.
But why not? Why can't they feature? We could say the same about Malik Neighbors.
Say about every receiver that was drafted in the fourth, fifth.
Look at Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with him.
Yep.
He didn't get a target until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but I believe that's more of an aberration. Whereas with what's going on with Flowers, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see them really prioritizing Flowers to the extent that they probably should. You know, based on, you know, how good of a player he is. But the problem is, you know, Rashad Bateman is not terrible, and these other receivers, they're, you know, either they're not terrible or they're not getting covered, one of the two, because they're, you know, they're spreading the ball around. That's just what they do. And, you know, when you're talking about trying to put a player who was drafted as high as Flowers on a team like that, where the ball just gets spread around, it's tough to trust him.
But how high was he getting drafted? He was a late fifth round in NFFC, and in the sixth rounder in FFPC. I mean, Bateman had like 4 or 5 catches coming into this week.
Yeah, I mean, Flowers had 20 targets the first 2 weeks. That's what I want.
Okay.
The
topic was a player that has started hot that you don't believe in long term. That's my guy.
Okay.
I mean, that's, you know, you can disagree. It's allowed. For sure.
Okay.
All right.
We're disagreeing.
There you go. All right. Let's move to a player that's off to a nice cold start who you still think is going to turn around, help us win games. Matt.
I mean, I got to go with Bowers. I mean, I think this guy is just too good of a player. Somebody's got to, realize that in Las Vegas, and this is the path forward. So, I mean, it's got to be Bowers for me. Hopefully that prevails. And if I see Trey Tucker get 7 more targets in a game, I might break a TV.
All right. I'll go with Drake London. You know, and I am definitely very concerned about the way Penix has played the last 2 games. It's been ridiculously awful. But at least they've got Kirk Cousins backing him up right now. And, you know, I don't think that they'll let terrible play continue forever from the quarterback position. I don't think they want to pull Penix out. I mean, you know, when they asked the coach after this last game, you know, he flat out said, no, Kirk Cousins is not in consideration for starting, which is exactly the thing he, you know, everybody should have expected him to say. But at least there is that backup, you know, like if there's an extended stretch of terrible play from Penix, I think that answer is going to change. And I think, yeah, they probably will throw Kirk Cousins in there and see what happens. And so I think, you know, as long as London gets some good quarterback play, I think he'll turn it around.
I agree with the London one.
All right. See, we do agree after all. Chris, what do you got?
Kumbaya. Kumbaya, everybody. Honestly, I wrote down 2 names for this answer. One was Brock Bowers, 2 was Drake London. So good job, guys. There you go. Let's all hold hands again.
Way different?
All right, let me pick somebody different. I think Brian Thomas.
There you go.
Yeah, all right, there we go.
Really?
It can't get any worse.
No,
and at the end of the day, like, he's still getting the targets, and he's still a playmaker. And I'm hoping that, these yips that he has, that, he starts gaining his confidence again, catching the ball, and he'll be a big second half guy.
What about the other wide receiver we didn't touch on in that Jacksonville offense, and that's Travis Hunter, who not everybody, I know I sometimes say that, most drafters, at least in Vegas, were falling all over themselves to draft him in that 5th round, early 6th round. Some people I even saw drafted him, moved him up to the 4th round. But there was a whole ton of Travis Hunter chatter about this guy could be a 2nd round pick. He's a star. He's going to be the 1B to Brian Thomas. He's more talented than Brian Thomas. Just everybody was Travis Hunter, right? This looks like a potential bust pick, especially when you look at the exact range where he was going on the draft board. It was always the same names, and it was Rome Odunze, it was Chris Olave, and Travis Hunter right there in that range, okay? And two are looking like major target hounds and stars for your fantasy team, and Hunter's looking like a complete bust. And the people that drafted Travis Hunter are looking like they got major egg on their face as well right now, because you can't even play Travis Hunter this week or anytime soon. And that's a complete whiff of a pick.
Yeah, he's not startable.
Yeah, that's the FOMO player for me who I almost avoided drafting. And then like the last week or so, I started drafting. I'm like, you know what? Let me get him on a card. I don't want to be shut out. And so we'll see.
Oh.
But
Travis Hunter is why they don't make ice cream cones with it
boys,
on each end.
I know.
We got breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news. And I was hoping to wait till Wednesday night for this news to come out, but Jackson Dart
Yep, there it is.
Starting running back.
I'm so
quarterback?
I'm so
starting running back. Yes, I like it.
Starting running
so this because
he runs a little bit too. He actually might be the starting running back too.
That's what I'm saying.
Starting quarterback. Yeah.
2 weeks ago, I added Jackson Dart on like 40% of my teams that would needed help, and then last week with roster trimming and needing a guy and Russ playing so well, I had to dump like 50% of my Dart shares. And I knew it as soon as that game ended on Sunday. I said, I can't believe this is going to blow up in my face. And sure enough.
Who are the Giants playing? Just out of curiosity.
The Chargers they're playing.
Chargers.
Ooh.
And it's the perfect time. You had to. You knew it was coming. The game is at home. You want to start them at home. You want to get the crowd, the fan base. That game would have started. Russell Wilson would have ran on the field. The whole crowd would have booed. Yeah. So you had to go to Dart, and here it is.
I think Thomas coming back this past week was key to that happening too, with the Russ situation.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right, let's move on. One last question for you guys.
Done.
You're not done until I say you're done, Matt.
I thought we were done.
I missed this question too.
What's a draft strategy you use that you'll probably use less of next year, and why? Or is there, on the opposite end, is there a draft strategy you wish you could use more of, and why? And I'm talking about, like general draft philosophy, not like picking the wrong players or picking the right players or whatever. Do you wish that you had gone more, hero running back or too early running backs or whatever? Just curious where you guys are at on, how you went about your draft process this past year. I'll start off. One thing that I wish I'd done a little bit less of, referring to the tight end position, is I wish I'd done a little bit less elite tight end and a little bit more just waiting on tight end. Because once again, and when I say waiting on tight end, I don't mean like the middle guys, like the Njokus and Ingrams and all of that, because guys like that are clearly busting. I mean, you wait until like the top 12 tight ends are off the board and then start picking tight ends. Because the thing is, you take that elite tight end, at best you're holding serve if that player turns out to actually be an elite tight end. It's working out for Trey McBride, but you haven't really gained anything. And if that player doesn't work out, if they bust, then all of a sudden you've lost out on, a really good running back, or a shot at a really good running back, or a shot at a really good wide receiver, and you can still pick up, like these Tucker Crafts, or you can pick up Juwan Johnsons. You can pick, off the waiver wire, for God's sake. But Jake Ferguson.
And Warren.
Yeah, Warren.
There's too many answers that are covering up.
Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, Juwan Johnson. That's what I'm talking about. And the more comfortable you feel at tight end, the less likely you are to even bid on the Juwan Johnsons or Harold Fannons or whatever. So to me, it's a comfortable click to say, okay, I'm going to take, Brock Bowers, and it feels really good, but you're kind of giving up potential upside because the tight ends you can get late are generally better than the wide receivers and running backs you can get late, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's me.
I'll just jump in and say that, what I wish I did more of was elite quarterback. But when I say that, I mean more Lamar and Josh Allen, because I did implement a lot of elite quarterback, and that was obviously Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, that blew up in my face with the injury that, we can't predict that. But so the thought process was there, just on the wrong guy. Okay. That's what I wish I implemented more of. But at the same time, what I am happy about that I did was I switched my philosophy more than ever this year to heavy running back early, and build off of that. And I'm happy with that so far. A lot of, McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor. My best two teams are my McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor starts. Happy about that. And we'll go from there. We'll see.
All right.
I was basically going to say the same thing. The elite quarterback being Josh Allen or Lamar. I mean, unfortunately, with the 3-1s, I got some Burrows in there that just totally blown up. So probably would have just stuck to that, especially in the third round. I think those are the two ideal picks.
I kind of like Jalen Hurts. I took a lot of them, and he had 1 week that didn't work out so well, but this past week he definitely did. I think Jalen Hurts is the cheapest of basically the top five. That was an easy pick for me in a lot of places.
Especially at his price, I do agree with you, Dan. At his price,
right? Yeah, if he'd been up to the same price as Burrow or Allen or any of them, I would have gone another way. But
yeah. For me, it's more players, and I know Dan, you said don't include that, but in terms of like draft strategy, I kind of mixed it up this year, and I was kind of happy with, not focused so much on like wide receivers and being open-minded to take, running backs early in drafts and everything. So maybe a little more in that third round, because we talked about it. I even mentioned it on the show that the third round was giving me trouble, and that Lamar and Josh Allen were like an easy, default pick. Just take them. They're not going to bust, outside of injury, and then figure out your wide receiver that you'd be taking there or your running back, in later in the draft.
That's exactly the point. I should have, made myself a little clearer. The third round, I wish I would have went more in on Lamar and Allen, just like Nelson said. But at the same time, we all spoke about it. The third round was giving all of us trouble. When you look back now, the third round had Trey McBride, okay? The third round had Jackson Smith and Jigba. The third round had Garrett Wilson. Third round had Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. There's more hits in the third round that we were worried about than there is in the effing first round right now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the third round also had Marvin Harrison.
Sure.
It had T. Higgins. It had Trevion Henderson. Obviously, the Hampton pick now, looks pretty good.
Let me throw in that last week, Devontae Adams was living in the third round as well, though. So, I mean, that's another hit as well. You got hits and misses. But we could go do the second round too. The second round has more misses than hits.
It does. I'm just saying, like, for me, I if you're trying to focus on like avoiding the landmines, I think going Lamar or Josh Allen was the way to go. It was the safest way to go.
Well, what about this? Like, if you were picking at the end of the first round, you either hit gold or you were just dead. If you started off with, say, Puka and Amon-Ra, or a Puka and CMC in the summertime, that was a home run. If you got BTJ and I don't know, just pick Chase Brown.
Chase Brown
right now.
Yeah.
You're dead. I mean,
10 through 15 was mostly right now, in 9 through 16, like that range at the end of the first, second is a disaster so far, unless you landed on Puka and Amon-Ra.
Even Nico Collins, Drake London, they haven't lived up to their draft.
Genty, Chase Brown. It's been a mess.
Yeah, and we thought the first round was, 16, 17 players deep. Turns out it was about 6 players deep.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think
another one in the books.
We've covered it pretty well for today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week. We really appreciate any feedback that you guys have, and make sure you hit that like button. Leave a comment on the YouTube or on the, Spotify or Apple or wherever you happen to listen to us.
Hopefully we didn't yell at each other. Yeah, I know we got a comment last week that we yell at each other too much and we speak over each other. So we tried to be better at that, but it's when you get the 4 of us together, there's going to be too much of that.
I call it healthy discussions.
That's it.
Yes, exactly.
Before we go, when I went downstairs, my wife was so, she goes, "Are you all right? I thought you were fighting." I'm like, that's just how men have conversations. We talk fantasy.
That's how men talk about fantasy football, honey.
Right. Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Very passionate.
Meanwhile, in Nelson's house, his wife is like, "It's so dark and quiet down there."
Oh my goodness! All right.
Is he okay?
All right. Anyway, we appreciate all the comments. We enjoy the feedback. We pay attention to some of it, and some of it we don't. But that's the way it goes. Good luck to everybody in the Empire this week, though, and we're gonna see you all next week.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.